Okay, so I have a little bit of everything for us to look at today. I'm sorry I've been gone for so long. I was on a bit of a break, but now I'm back. So let's get started. Got a little bit of everything. I wanted to start with this guy because I thought this was a really, really cool concept. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it. When we're designing characters and we're combining one element with another, please remember my mods, if anyone talks outside of the topic of discussion, if anyone says anything inappropriate, if anyone bullies anyone else, please just shut them out completely. Don't ban, just silence. If they go extensively bullying people or they, speak out too much, go ahead and give them a ban. Yeah, so watch out, kids. But yeah, whenever you're combining two elements together, so you're combining a portrait and a theme, or I don't know, a creature design and a landscape or something. When you're combining two, you have to seam them together seamlessly. You can't do this. What you've done here, you've done a cosplay version of this. This is a stick-on. I bought it at a Halloween costume. Lava beard, that you're an artist. You have the capacity to go in there and really make this seamless. You're not limited to cosplay. You don't have to do weird Dragon Ball Z hair gelled all to one side and it's like this weird cardboard hair. You don't have to do that. You're not restricted. One, you're dealing with a light source, which is lava. You're dealing with another nearby primary light source on the portrait. This is a completely different kind of human being. This is not a human being at all. This is a creature. It's a golem. So you're not going to need skin tone. The background was a little bit too light. Why is the background too light? Can anyone? I'm actually going to wait for the answer. This is really important. I need to know that you guys know why the background is too light. What is the most important thing happening? What's the theme of this, and why is the background ruining it? The background being so light, why is it ruining it? What just happened by me lowering the background like this versus this? I'm giving the answer away. If you're on YouTube and you don't want to wait for the answer, just write it. Type it as a comment. I don't mind. I love seeing that. I love seeing YouTubers participate in the comment section as well. It's good for your notes. It's good for your memory. Don't get me wrong, I love Dragon Ball Z. I'm just saying the gel, it didn't transfer well. Some stuff doesn't transfer well. And so you're not restricted to that. You have the paint at your disposal, so you can pull off some more believable, realistic versions of like fantasy style. Exactly, the background isn't letting the light source show through. It doesn't show the glow because the light source is the lava. Well, some of the light source is the lava. So that's why in your presentation, the main showcase, the pièce de la résistance, this is being completely dwarfed by this humongous background light source that is so bright it's making the background white. So we got to bring that baby all the way down. That's step one. Step two, as I said before, he can't have flesh tones. Because at this point, if flesh tones obviously are not possible in this specific scenario, we will keep the humanoid shape, but we're bringing that flesh tone all the way down. And the reason, again, why we're doing this is because he's a golem. He's not really a human wearing cosplay, stick-on lava beard. This is an actual golem creature. Another thing that you need to start doing, again, is the thing that I mentioned before, which is the seaming it together, smaller pieces. So at this point, he doesn't have hair. He just has lava. So what I'm doing is I'm making smaller pieces along the top. And this is really similar to how men's beards grow. They just have smaller little hairs, and the longer hairs are the ones that drape downward. So that's all I'm doing right here. He's got that Taliban beard. Sorry I'm saying that. I really hate the Taliban. They have a beard but no mustache. If you're in Iraq and a guy with a beard and no mustache is running at you, run as fast as you fucking can before the caravan shows up. Alright. So, I'm just gonna erase that. Now, if a man with a beard and a mustache runs after you, he's just trying to invite you over for dinner. Yes. You must know these things. Ask anyone who served in the military in Afghanistan or Iraq. They'll agree. It's just a thing. The terrorist sect, well, of course some of the Sunni sect did it, but I don't want to talk about this. But if you're Muslim, you probably, Shia Muslim, you probably understand what I'm saying. It's a little thing we say. If a guy with a beard, a full beard, and no mustache is running after you. So I'm just going to throw some basic, please ignore everything I was just talking about. Istebrak's back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to throw some basic shadows like you did over here. And after that, what I'm going to have to start doing, I'm not even looking at the comment section. He's got that Taliban. Of course you guys would. Of course. Why not? Quote it. 1 second, something's in the oven. Okay. So I'm just bringing in those little details. And what that's doing is it's, again, not making it feel like it was a stick-on beard. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is the shadow. The fact that as these tiny little rock beards are reaching creating a gradient on the side of the face. And that's how I'm going to make this look even more seamless. And I'm going to carry this shadow, this black coal burning, this effect of the charred kind of skin hairline thing that's happening to him right now. I'm just carrying that everywhere. There's no redness, there are no purples in the skin tones, there's no yellows in the skin tones. This is all of this is just a golem in the shape of a man. So he's not full golem, he's a human, probably can lower his temperature and make some babies with us. But I'm just going ahead and darkening all of this. The light source of the eyes is considered a light source now as well. And you made the entire area a light source. Again, if you look at a fire, there's a hot spot and everything else around it isn't that hot. It's all blackened or dark red. So one part of the palette that's missing is the dark red. And I don't recommend going full light on the entire area of the eyes. You want them to be the centerpiece, of course, of the portrait, but he's one big specimen, so you'd want to give out some of that interest. You don't want to make the eyes fully light. You want to save some of that interest for the hair and beard. That's where the action is, really. I mean, we've seen sparkly eyes before. There's nothing new. But I personally have never seen a lava beard. So that's where I want to focus all my attention. That's where the uniqueness of the design is. So we can put in some highlight around the eyes, but I don't recommend it being so bright that it's taken over the focal point. So almost a shared focal point right now. We've covered how we can share focal points, how the eyes don't have to always be fully exposed to the light source, how they can be shrouded in some shadow. Alright, so the cooler part of a fire is in the outsides, and it's when it's most red. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to do it. That's too high. Alright, select inverse. What I'm going to do is grab a red and use that for the tails of all of the fire areas. Then I would have established the actual palette of the texture. So a texture is not just in its surface texture, but in its colors. Write that back to me. A texture sometimes will not get pulled off if you don't have the right color for it. So a tree, you can get green, but if you don't get the right kind of green, you're going to be trying to paint basically like a toy tree. You're not really going to capture the texture of that foliage. So you need some of that red mixed in the formula in here, wherever the fire is coolest. So it's red, orange, yellow, and almost yellow-white right at the center. Another thing I'm going to do is just darken everything. Darken the lava everywhere I go. And I'm just going to use a burn tool on shadows. The equivalent of this is just getting a darker, more saturated version. So just doing this. This is what burn tool does. It just darkens and saturates. So we're working with this curve. Alright, so I'm not touching the face just yet. We will have to talk about the face in a second. It's looking a little fleshy, and I want it to look a little bit more like concrete. So I'm darkening this first, and then what I'm going to do, let's get that old layer back, and then erase away wherever there are hot spots. Okay, Okay, so right here where it's hottest, I'm just going to erase away your actual colors that we started off with. Look at that. It's really going to start glowing right here, just at the places where the root is. That's where I'm going to bring back that brightness. A little more brightness for the eyes. Again, around the eyebrows. And then I'm going to really spike that up using dodge tool. And I'm taking a look at the portrait. I don't want to just bring in highlights anywhere willy-nilly. I have to create a pattern. And so what I want to do is create like a little bit of a minor little sneak in a Fibonacci swirl in there, a spiral. So what I want to try to do is do a little like that. So this 6 right here, I'm going to try to do that, because that's pretty much all the interest is sitting on top of the 6. The nose and the lips aren't really important. So I'm going to start off just around this area and move down along this hairline. So this is obvious here. I need some more interest. I need some more rock pieces. I need some more fiery lava pieces. Maybe his face is a mask, and you can start showing how it's like plastered on. And it's shining through. But just around the hairline. Just like that. And then back towards the eyes, because they're part of the focal importance. And just like that. Another thing I'm going to do is think about material. So if the skin tone is the skin tone of a golem, his skin really isn't going to have a higher value level. It's going to be pretty dark. We're talking about a walking fireplace in the shape of a man. So that tends to be covered in soot. So what I'm going to do is just start doing that all over again. In a new layer, I'm going to throw in some more of that charred black. And this is really going to get that shine of that fire out. So if your texture, ask yourself the question, prepare. If your texture is one that demands a darker stage, start dark. Understand that at one point, to be a good photographer, which we have to be along, learning all the fundamental rules, we have to frame well. If you're a photographer and you're showing off a glowing, if you're in a museum and you're a curator and you were showing off a glowing sculpture, are you going to put it in a fully lit room? No. This is a glowing sculpture. Right, so this is why I'm bringing in even more black. I don't want that primary light source to read as more important than this lava that's happening here. Also, as a concept, I don't know what this black is doing behind him, this ball. You're probably using it as some sort of framing. If he's a concept and you're going to pitch this concept to someone, I just don't recommend what's happening in the background. It's throwing off the... Is it part of him? You're going grayscale, but then you're really not. And I think it's just getting in the way. So I would get rid of it completely. Let's see if I can get rid of it faster. Okay. You really don't need it. It's not important. All right, almost done with this. And what I recommend is going even darker in the background, giving us like a full black. Because that's really going to make things shine. Just take a look. Just like that. And when you go this dark, what happens is, of course, you don't just have a flame, you have the glow, the bloom of the flame. And it does a little thing like this. Let me see. Lighten screen. I'm going to use soft light. Alright, so right around here. Am I still on? Yes. Right around here. I'm going to grab that hottest yellow. And it's not going to shine everywhere. It's just going to have certain areas where it just peeks through the rock of obviously creating an eclipse. And we're just going to have certain areas come through. And that's why you have to darken, because the eyes, everything are all glowing in this beautiful kind of like setup. And it's so unique to see this. I've never really seen this before. Now what I'm going to do is try to find wherever we have hairs that are overlapping, like draping like lava. I'm going to try to get that main stem of heat traveling through as if it was a flame. And again, it's okay because it's part of that spiral, that 6. I'm not going to put some random flame glowing up there. That's not good. And so out here, what you have is a little bit of a problem. First of all, the canvas is too short on him. All right, so let's fix that. And second, the texture right here, you need to show some heat. So it's not only needing a darkness to be more visible, it's a hot substance and it's glowy. So that means that we need to address all of it. We have to have a way to represent that all of that is happening. So there's a smudge tool that you can use. You know those heat waves that happen on the asphalt? And you can see it against cars. What you can do is bring some of that in. I'm sure he's like piping hot. So that's something that we need to show. Just wherever that heat is just emanating out. You can use this tiny, tiny little outline around as a chance to show off the rim of the flame. But you need to show off that smudge. I'm just using my smudge brush. It's the rename. It's the number 4 smudge brush, and I'm just using that on the smudge tool, and I'm just letting that do its job. It's just like in traditional, the brushes that I use, the way I use brushes. You let the brush do the work. If you've ever seen Bob Ross paint a tree, the brush is painting the tree. Bob Ross is just like guiding it around. You know, he's not going in there and trying to design every bristle. He's not making all the choices for the silhouette of the object he's painting. He's letting the brush do some of the work. That's why he chose the brush of that texture. If we didn't want brushes and their texture and their ability to render for us, to an extent, of course, then we wouldn't have used texture brushes. We'd always be working with the same old brush, creating the textures manually. So another thing that's really needed for a flame just around the edges is just that burned edge, the cool edge of a flame. And I'm just going to go in with a desaturation tool, a sponge tool, and I'm going to desaturate the flames just to make them read as a little bit more hot and white. Remember that off-white, that off-yellow, off-white kind of deal, part of the palette. So you're done with the texture. It's looking better. I really like the smoky effect the dodge tool did, so I'm going to try to do some more of that using multiply. And I'm just going to create some of that smoke. The beard needs a little bit more brightness on it. Excuse me. Sorry, I didn't have time to mute. I'm just carrying some of that in there just to show off the flame all the way down. So where you were before, one, you were too bright. You weren't considering the texture as an active material. Textures can be active materials. Write that back to me. That means that they can burn and billow and move yeah, just move. They're active. They're animatable and animating. They're constantly moving. So right along here you have a chance to really show some more variety of shape for these little rocks. I'm not sure where I would place them. Where you place these makes a big difference because they're small. So you got to be very careful. But actually what I would do instead of that, I'm just going to show how the hair overlaps some of these rocks over here. How it just overlaps on top of them. But yes, remember that textures can move. There are textures that are still. I mean, there's fabric studies and they're pretty still and static. But when it comes to a flame, which is a texture, it's moving. It's alive. So you have to show off how it's doing that. How is it accomplishing that? Exactly. Textures can be active materials. What's another active material you guys can think of? Alright. So I'm throwing some more darkness over here. The hair is kind of turning into a wave. Further into the fold we move. And then we've got the face. The face is a whole other story on itself. I would think that the face is made of some sort of obsidian or dark stone. That's the only thing that's really going to stay there hot enough. Like if I was a demon and I wanted to be in the shape of a man, but I'm only a flaming ball of death, I would choose the most sturdy rock to take to use as a material with which I shape myself. I'm not going to actually get skin. It's carbon-based substance, so it's going to just burn up. I have to find something that is sturdy. So look it up. Actually go in there and look up which rocks withstand heat the most. Look at them. Look at their texture and use that as a reference. So, I don't know. I want to Google it right now, but slime, water. Exactly, water. So when you're doing water, you have to think about gravity. Which direction is it still water or is it moving water? And if it's moving, it's all moving in one direction. So your brush grain has to move in that direction. Light, yeah, I've talked about how light is active and it emanates, so you have to use a soft brush. For hair, not so much. Hair and fur are pretty standard unless there's like wind nearby. But I'm talking about something, yeah, exactly, that has energy in it. So smoke definitely is an active one, so you have to think about its source, how it starts off thin and turns out it ends up thick like a flame. Plants can be, yeah, active. I mean, if you're thinking about the wind as playing a role, but fire is pretty much one of those things that you can't. You have to make sure you've addressed it in its thermal texture, and its light texture, and its intensity, and its palette, and how it moves, its pattern. So fire doesn't just point down, fire points up. So you're gonna have a hard time convincing me this is a beard. So some of it is magma, which you get away with. And magma is very, very black. That's why I went in and darkened everything. It's very, very dark. It's just really, really burnt soil. Really, really hot earth. So I'm going to just go ahead and darken some more. But yeah, when it comes to the face, your palette is all yellow. If there is a primary light source nearby, you're going to have a difficult time merging the two. Even if there was a primary light source nearby, this light source is so close to his face that it's going to be very difficult for you to follow the primary light source and ignore the secondary light source here. The light is so close to his face that it's behaving as the primary. So I'm darkening that completely. I'm going to show how the ears are just a little bit see-through right over here. And then I'm going to throw that palette color. He's a man on fire, so he's going to have that fire color everywhere. It's the wash that I talk about, that light environment. The fire has changed the light environment around him specifically. He's a walking, talking light source. So that's why I'm throwing this color here. And then anywhere where we have some light shining back up, we're going to have those secondary light source reflections. So we're going to have like the lower half of the lip here, the lower part here. Anything that looks down, back down at the light source, I'm just choosing one section. And then we just keep finding these areas. And then you've got the primary light source. That's not done. I'm not done with that. The primary light source is the reason why we're not just seeing two eyes and a beard. We're seeing the skin tone because there is a primary light source. That is making some difference. So I am going to cast a larger shadow that's a little bit more fuzzy, less sharp. A fuzzier shadow means a weaker light source or a more distant light source. It can still be a strong light source, just far away. So like overcast shadows. So I'm going to extend that shadow. Establish which areas are closer to the light source, which ones are more pronounced. And then go in, I'm going to duplicate this layer. Didn't want to spend too much time on one painting, but this one means a lot. Because I've never really talked about flames enough, and well, this is going to be tricky. And I wanted to cover this with you guys. Right, and then I'm going to smudge. Just to seam that in. Do you see how how what you had, well, you'll see the paint, the before and after in a second, but you'll see how it wasn't seamless. And when you're talking about the creation of a character like this, you really do have to think about you as the creator. What choices would you make if you were the monster itself and you wanted to take the shape of a man? Why would you even want to do that? You're a beautiful celestial creature. But anyway, let's say you fell for a chick and you wanted to take the shape of a man. Again, follow that narrative. What material would you choose? How would you look in the dark? What's the optimal time of day for you to go out and reveal yourself? I mean, if you wanted to look your best, you go outside in the darkness. If you had a glowy jacket, a glowy disco jacket, you know, you wouldn't wear it in the daytime. But I digress. Okay. Yes, but he's not made out of skin. Excuse me. Could a character challenge lava? Oh yeah, could be a character challenge, yeah. Lava people. And then finally, he's glowing everywhere, all around. So we're going to have these weird little rims everywhere. We're going to have rims everywhere. One final little glow back, because he's got fire on the other side of his body. So we've got these little pieces everywhere. He's got light back there too. This is looking a little too skin tony for me, but just there on like the edge of his ear. I mean, his ear is starting to look like cartilage, but we're getting away with it. Okay. So what did we learn? Can anyone recap? This is none of it was about the character happened by a result of good research. The character happened after the science happened. After you ask the real questions. If I were to make this for a movie, if this was a movie character, I mean, would I get away with having these cheap cosplay looking special effects, or you know, do I need some real like light source programming in there, like some real, actually make the object behave as a light source? So when you're thinking about the way Power Ranger like bad guys were created, they all looked like they were cosplaying themselves as themselves. But then as you know, we got more advanced with our concept art, we started treating everything, if it was a light source, we treated it as a light source. And we got lens flares and subsurface scattering, and we got more and more intricate. There's just a little bit of subsurface scattering up here. The light is shining through, so we get that. I think, you know, like cast shadow right here. We might get some subsurface scattering like that. I don't know. All that is up to you. Really, I would do it if it was mine. If it was my painting. And I would just keep darkening and darkening and seeing how dark I can go without losing the character. So I would just darken even more. A mature, you know, a mature designer isn't afraid to lose the face. A mature designer isn't afraid to lose the portrait. It's not all about the portrait, it's about presenting the character properly. So before, too bright, felt like he was just a blonde guy with some rocks, but you are going for a fire. This is clearly lava, these are rock pieces. So we had to darken so we get that lava effect. And again, I would darken even more. So I'm gonna just darken that. And then erase away wherever there is importance. But yeah, write that back to me. A good designer isn't afraid of losing the portrait, isn't afraid of losing the face. The face isn't what's going to carry. Where I'm erasing right now is around that 6 that I showed you guys earlier. I'm also going to go to try to find some of that rim. And that's what's going to make him look like he's glowing. It's an active texture, really feels alive. And this is all that any studio ever asks for. They're just asking for a general appreciation of textures. There's a general, like, just topical appreciation of the sciences and textures. That's it. They're not asking you to be the biggest, best, you know, heavyweight champion of lighting. It's just answering the basic questions. All right, so we do need that rim a little more strong because we darkened. A good designer isn't afraid of losing the portrait. Exactly. If all your talent is two eyes, a nose, and a mouth, you're not a very good designer. You're creating a creature. There are other components that can carry the creature forth. Okay, so I'm just getting those hot spots here. I would totally invite you to create some like cracks. Oh, those would be so cool. Just around any area where like we see the face, like we see the nature of his creation, like that he's wearing a face. He doesn't really actually have a face. That would be hella cool. I don't have time to pursue that right now. Okay. So before, too much white, glowy eyes. After. Right, so he doesn't read as a darker person. He's in a dark room and the stuff around him is glowing. And if you've ever seen me draw, you know I would totally just go for like that. If you ever seen me, like it's really kind of like a it's a madness that I have when it comes to dodge tool and anything glowing. Like I would make it that bad. I would make it that crazy. But I'm just holding back a little bit. I would also go back and reconstruct the face, reconstruct the eyes and the nose. But again, you have this version, which is just wild. I love it. And then you've got this version. Wait, shit. And then you've got this version. I really like this version. So you've got that or that. And by reconstructing the face, I would just go back here. Choose the light source's value. And I recommend like a eerie cave blue. So what I'm doing is trying to find all these surface areas. And what that eerie cave blue did is that it just came across and kind of just illuminated his face in all the right spots. So you'll see what it does in a second. I really wish I could get to everyone today. I do have to get going soon. Little Miss Adult has people coming over for dinner. I gotta be a good hostess. Alright, so like an eerie little blue. Something like that. You see that? Just so that we can get the real polys, the real structure of the face out. Anywhere where the light touches of the primary light source. This isn't for everything. This isn't, we're not just doing a wash. But you can see what that does is it brings in a new environment, a new light environment, very similar to the color out here. And if you made the color out here that same color, so if you did this, normal color. Now I'm going to do this in a new layer. That was too blue. Then you've got this beautiful palette. And you can explain why there's blue on his face. So this is just light environment talk. You can keep it as the basic gray. You can bring in that blue. The fire is still behaving as a beautiful fire. And this is if you wanted to go crazy with the flame. I would go this direction. You guys know me. You guys know the way I draw stuff. I would just go wild with anything that's like glowing or fiery or metallic or like glowing magical blue flame. Yeah. I just take it to this level. That's why I want to save this for the end. This is an option. You don't have to go that bad. And without it being fire, used for fire, dodge tool is pretty much the cheesiest tool you can use to draw with. Please don't use dodge tool to shade and highlight. But only when the situation calls for it. And the fire is definitely the perfect situation wherein we need an extreme spike of saturation and illumination, which is what dodge tool does. All right, and none of that we couldn't appreciate any of that here. It's a beautiful design. As I said, it's why I chose to talk about it. I've never seen this before. It's really cool. But I would have a little bit more seamlessness everywhere. Right here, this is like I would really have some more cracks just around the cheek. You have like a chance to show off some like more fire kind of peeking through. Just like that in between the rocks over here. just as if it was the fire was getting smaller and the root of the fire, or the root of the, like the follicle, I guess, where the follicle would be. We just have a little bit more glow. So I'm going to flatten this and send it back to you. Remember, you don't have to go this bright. I do always want to be as cautious as possible when it comes to dodge tool and students. Okay, so the issue with this piece here is I'm not going to take questions because I don't have time. I wish I did. I don't have time to take questions. But yeah, the issue with this one is, what's wrong? The background is more saturated than the character. The character is a red dude. Again, if you were a photographer, would you really allow the background to be more interesting than the subject, who has paid you probably $3,000 for 100 images or 200 images or something? I don't know how they price nowadays, those photographers. But I would desaturate that, because we're talking about the red here. Beautiful piece. It's so cute. What the hell is... What's this cute little freak doing wearing clothes? Alright, so you have a reference right here. Look at this proud motherfucker. He's trying to attract a lady. I remember seeing that what's it called? That meme. And they put some captions under this bird who was doing a mating dance. And he said, "You want some fuck?" Please look it up if you're of age. Anyway, squint your eyes for me real quick. You see the pattern of saturation is around his angry little eyebrows and his chest area. So what we'd want to do is do that exactly. We want to get some of that redness here. But because we can't, his cute little red cheeks. Because we can't really show his chest, I'm going to throw some of that saturation on his shirt anyway. Alright, so his little royal seal. See what happened now? He's the center of attention now. I'm going to do some slight editing. Let me use burn tool real quick for the eyes. And you see the pattern up here. Half the top third of the eye has that blue color. It's not just one section. It's the entire eye area. So it's not just one little circle. Where is it? I have to show you guys. Because the bird is trying to attract the female bird, and then he's like to her, "You want some fuck?" This is a nice stack. Because he's offering her some blue. I'm sorry, I just found it really really funny. I laugh for hours. Okay, my madness. I'm just gonna stop. So I'm gonna let this get a little dark, just in radiations. I'm not sure if this is, no, this is digital, right? Is this traditional? I didn't read. So this is going to be very hard for you to burn traditionally. I mean, you can burn traditionally, but it's a very delicate process. So I'm just creating these radiations right here. And I'm letting this light go all the way across the top. This is a reflection of the nearby area, maybe a nearby window. I think birds are cute. They're so angry all the time. Alright, just around here we have some more. And I'm just copying this fella. And then I'm just going to get the sponge tool. I'm using all digital tools. I'm so sorry if this was traditional. It kind of looks like it was. But if it wasn't, this is a really great texture you got going on. It really looks like it is. One thing that I don't like is the way you've drawn this collar here. Look, it's taking up a large space in the painting. It's taking up a lot of space. And you just have it sitting there almost outlined. If this was an outline, if this was the hem wouldn't go all the way on the outline of the silhouette. It would just go around. So you did outline it. Alright, so just take a look before, after. You had that redness in the background, absolutely not just not important area. This is just not the center crosshair of the portrait, so it's not important for us to have anything in that area. Then you've got the fact that you have texture differences. So you've got some shine right on the beak using the same color light source as the stuff on the eye. So you got to choose a light source to unify this. I'm going to choose a white blue. Get a new layer and just create some shine. Same exact shine I'm going to use for the eyes. That's how you unify something in a light environment. You use the same color all around. I'm going to get that same white blue on the feather here. On this, actually, I'm going to make a new layer for that. And I'm just going to make it into color. And just throw that on there. And then another new layer, soft light, and just throw that. So we have some real, like a unified light source nearby. See, it actually looks realistic. That's the final stretch. That's the final push, is that realistic light source used on all the layers, used on everything. That's what's gonna make everything go, you know, cross that border into full realism. And I don't mean like photorealism. We're not photorealists. That's never what I mean. I mean like full realism as capped by our pursuit of illustration. You know, ideally we're not drawing photorealism. We're drawing a realistic, partially realistic human thing, or natural thing. All right, so I'm going to cast some shadows on the far half. So that's the light can't reach that, so it's in one massive umbra. It's just the dark half of the native geometry. And I don't know why, but this area is bright, so I'm going to darken it as if it's the shadow of the bird. Try to copy and follow the shape of the fabric. Look at that. Cast shadows are life. It's all about, if a cast shadow said you want some, I would say yes. Okay? Just basically, this half isn't supposed to be light. That's why we need to cast the shadow and then just dim it generally. We'll dim this side as well. Remember, the light source is coming from a very specific direction. And for us to have illumination on that other half, especially because you created this beautiful little shadow here. Half of the beak is in shadow. What's the far half of the bird doing in so much light? What's the far half of his collar doing in so much light, you know? Bye, Libby. Thanks for joining us today. Excuse me. So I want to look at the comments section in a second. Please ask relevant questions. If you don't have a relevant question to ask, please leave it for the community. I hate having to reject them. Right here, this is on the lower half of the painting, so just go ahead and blur that. It's not important. It's not more important than Mr. Edward Puffington the third. So make sure you write at Istebrak in order for me to find your question, or else it'll just get flooded in the chat. Okay, so let me show you really quickly. I just got to close off the canvas at the lower half. It's way too bright at the lower half of the canvas. We need to close that off nice and clean like. And let me see if I can fix the collar. The collar is only facing the light at certain degrees. The rest of it is not really facing the light in that direction. So this part of the collar is looking up. This part of the collar is looking forward. So that means, in fact, we only get the light of the collar just around here. So remember that blue-white that I chose? Bringing it back. And I'm just throwing that in there just like that. So it's a geometry. Remember, folded paper studies and any kind of geometry study is wonderful for your improvement. And a folded paper study really teaches you how to break down a fabric, which is all organic forms, into a more geometric form. So how do you bring down a fabric study into a low poly? That's like an antithesis of it. But you do that by doing paper studies. You fold up a paper, not crazy, just, you know, general mess up of the paper, and then you lay it, you know, take a picture of it, put it on a table, and then copy it. Capture its light environment. Capture the main areas that are facing the light source, and you do that by starting with the part of the fold of the paper that is facing the light source the most. You start with the brightest point. You identify that, and then you identify the midtone, identify the shadows. Or you can start with midtones first, and then identify the highlights. But when you find the lightest point, which is the point that in this folded paper is looking forward most, it becomes very easy for you to break down the rest of the folds. This is why I'm saying you had this odd shape for the collar, because it wasn't really in its low poly. And I know that sounds weird to say a low poly version of an organic form study, but really that's what it is. You're missing the actual contours of it, the science of the collar. All right. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Istebrak, when will you have open slots for private tutoring? Right now, pretty much closed. I have one that I'm booking for June, but that would be it for June. If I do have open slots, especially single slots, I don't book those anymore. I have to prioritize people who have paid for complete curriculum, so I can't do the hours. The hours we prioritized and given to full curriculums that I'm completing with students. So right now, the 45 price slot is completely closed. And I only had space for one more 7-day program, and I already booked it. The most they open up as the week goes, and almost always the person who applies gets a session within a month to a month and a half. But yeah, there's quite a waiting period right now for private sessions. Anyway, what was the question? This rock is feeling danky. Isn't the shadow by the feathers on the head too sharp and divided? Shouldn't there be some feathers still highlighted, as they aren't a block but individual feathers? I like it. I don't hate it, but I can see what you mean. It would be really cool to see some of the feathers kind of just overlapping over here. So we see some of that brightness. Just like that. You just see some areas kind of break and divide that up. You see another dark section over here. I think this is what you're talking about. I see what you mean. I would saturate this line completely because there is some subsurface scattering around here. So just saturate along it. But now the background is nice and out of the way. Wait a second. This saturation is actually outside of the color. This is more purple. So I'm going to just purplify this because this is too red. Color. It's still going to be saturated. It's just not going to be the wrong color. It was a purple purple dress or whatever it is. Before, after. Before, super saturated. You don't need it. Please never do this again. Oh my God! In the community wall, I saw so many backgrounds that were over detailed and full texture, tiny little speckled brush textures used. It was too much. You guys need to stop giving a shit about the background and start giving a damn about saturation and contrast levels appropriate with the focal point. You were desaturated and all the wrong on the focal point, and you did all of that fun. It's like you had more fun. You know, I want to ask you a personal question. Did you have more fun in the background than you did here? Did you finally take a breather and say, oh my God, finally I'm done with this stupid bird? Ah, life's good. Life's good. Maybe I'll go get some ice cream. And then you go back to this guy and your butthole tenses again and you just don't want to deal with it anymore. It feels like it. It feels like it. You had a lot of fun here. You brought in all the saturation and the edge work, and look at that. It's a beautiful job. Just got to invert it, have some fun with this fella, cast a shadow, respect its presence of light source. Looks very classic now, that classical shading style. They didn't have crazy bounce light reflectors nearby with every photo they took. They just had one light source, and they almost always waited for the exact same time of day every day until the painting was done, because they wanted that exact light source. They didn't want anything to change, and almost always was a nearby flame or nearby light source or nearby massive window to make the painting. But that's it. That's it for today. I gotta get going. Thank you everyone for coming. Let me see some. Do feathers show subsurface scattering? Yes, they do. Absolutely. We covered that last class with the little birds flying under the shadow. Are feathers considered as translucent? Yes, they're not opaque. They do allow the light to go through them. Nice to catch you live. Watched a bunch of your videos already. Your voice is so relaxing. So almost every time I fall asleep during your videos. No offense. Thank you, Simon. Fall asleep in the midst of so much knowledge. Butthole. It's a funny painting. Yeah, I love it. He looks like he's smiling, but also looks like he's cranky. He's just angry little cute fuck. But yeah, that's it for today. To follow me, go to istebrak.com. To join the community and submit your stuff for critique, go to Google, the little Google Plus icon right here. Again, I'm so sorry for my absence. I think I needed it. I've come back with a skip in my step, if that's how you say it. And I'm happy to be back. I'm never doing this. I'll never leave you guys again. You're stuck with me. So thank you everyone for coming. I'll see you guys on Thursday. And by the way, the announcement, the Magical Companion has won. No, this one. I'm on the wrong one. Magical Companion has won. I will be releasing the resource pack for it by the end of the week. Prepare yourselves. It's not what you thought it was. You guys should have chosen Robot Children. I explained this last night in my stream. I might do a personal stream tonight for you guys, just some of my personal drawings, and get some content completed. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining today. It's good to be back. Bye guys.